Donald Trump is having a meltdown on late Sunday afternoon as the strikes on Iran do not seem to have been as successful as he initially claimed. He's now posting "Make Iran Great Again" and calling for regime change. And this follows earlier today Donald Trump's Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth saying that there is no intention for regime change. And then Donald Trump's Vice President J.D. Vance went on the morning shows and said the United States is not pursuing regime change. But here Donald Trump is saying MIGA, make Iran great again, and regime change. Here's what he posted. He goes, "It's not politically correct to use the term regime change, but if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be regime change? Question mark. Make Iran great again! Exclamation point, exclamation point." As our editor-in-chief Ron Filipkowski writes, just when the paid MAGA shills got done cranking out 36 hours of posts to their divided cult that this was only about nukes and not about regime change, Trump does it again. Now, this was earlier today when J.D. Vance was on Meet the Press, and he says, "Our view has been very clear and has not changed. We don't want regime change." Here's J.D. Vance saying it. Play this clip.
Well, look, that's up to the Israelis, but our view has been very clear that we don't want a regime change. We do not want to protract this or build this out any more than it's already been built out. We want to end their nuclear program, and then we want to talk to the Iranians about a long-term settlement here.
Now, here's Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth saying the mission was not and has never been about regime change, the exact opposite of what Donald Trump just posted. Play this clip.
Yeah. So is regime change off the table, Mr. Secretary? And to the chairman, you said the battle damage assessment is still ongoing, but do you believe that some nuclear capability in Iran remains?
This mission was not and has not been about regime change. The president authorized a precision operation to neutralize the threats to our national interests posed by the Iranian nuclear program and the collective self-defense of our troops and our ally Israel.
Now, Donald Trump is posting that he posted this as well about a half hour ago. The damage to the nuclear sites in Iran is said to be, quote, monumental. The hits were hard and accurate. Great skill was shown by our military. Thank you, exclamation point. However, that's not what the intelligence seems to be showing right now. It seems that the Fordow complex was not completely destroyed. There's also a bunch of messages as well coming out from J.D. Vance and others, like this from the Wall Street Journal. J.D. Vance signals that Iran still controls enriched uranium stockpile. So that would seem to undercut everything that Donald Trump is saying there. Also, even Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the extent of damages is still to be seen. Again, more hedging right there. Also, this is what CNBC was reporting moments ago. U.S. is now calling on China to prevent Iran from closing the Strait of Hormuz and disrupting global oil flows. So the United States, which was once a superpower, now has to go and beg China's leader, Xi Jinping, to help stop Iran from disrupting global oil flows. So Trump is begging Xi Jinping right now. That's what is taking place. Also, Donald Trump is posting the following. Just look at the way this visually looks. It looks like a crazy person wrote this. And Donald Trump in this message is attacking Thomas Massie of Kentucky. And here's what he says. Congressman Thomas Massie of Kentucky is not MAGA, even though he likes to say he is. Actually, MAGA doesn't want him, doesn't know him, and doesn't respect him. He is a negative force who almost always votes no, no matter how good something may be. He's a simple-minded grandstander who thinks it's good politics for Iran to have the highest level nuclear weapon, while at the same time yelling death to America at every chance they get. Iran has killed and maimed thousands of Americans and even took over the embassy in Tehran under the Carter administration. We had a spectacular military success yesterday, taking the bomb right out of their hands, and they would use it if they could. But as usual, and despite the praise and accolades received, this lightweight congressman is against what was so brilliantly achieved last night in Iran. Masih is weak, ineffective, and votes no on virtually everything put before him. Rand Paul Jr. And then Donald Trump goes on and just continues to whine there. But you see, oh, you know I had to do it. Moink. 4 companies control over 80% of the U.S. meat industry. China now controls the largest portion of U.S. pork. These companies are using mobster-like tactics to crush American family farms. And with the additives they're putting into our food, Americans are stuck with sketchy meat. So what can we do about it? Let me tell you about a company that's coming up swinging on behalf of American family farms and your family's food security. It's called Moink. As I said at the beginning, Moink, Moink. The business is simple. Moink's meat comes from animals raised outdoors where a pig is free to be a pig. Their farmers are given an honest day's pay for an honest day's work, and they deliver meat straight to your doorstep at prices that you can actually afford. Born, raised, and harvested right here in the United States. Support American family farms and join the Moink movement today at moinkbox.com/MeidasTouch right now and get free wings for life. They're the best wings you'll ever taste for free, but for a limited time. Here's how you spell it. MOINK box.com/MeidasTouch. That's moinkbox.com/MeidasTouch. He is attacking Republicans for basically reiterating what Donald Trump's campaign position was, which was no wars in the Middle East. But of course, we know that Trump was lying. Donald Trump also posted the following. He refers to himself as Donuct. He spells his name wrong. Here's what he posts. The great B-2 pilots have just landed safely in Missouri. Thank you for a job well done. And then he spells his name Donuct, D-O-N-A-K-D, J. Trump, President of the United States. And it's just, post after post like this, looking incredibly, incredibly erratic. What other information are we learning right now as well? There's something called Pickaxe Mountain, that there's another Iran, lesser known underground nuclear facility that's actually deeper than Fordo, which may have enriched uranium as well, or may be a place where there is nuclear capabilities. Iran is claiming that they've been able to remove the nuclear capabilities before the attack on Fordo. Lots of leaders in Iran are claiming that the Trump regime choreographed when the strikes would take place because the Trump regime was hoping it would just be a one-off strike, the way they killed Soleimani in 2020, and then that the Trump regime would just move on. And that enabled Iran to move some of its weapons or move some of its materials outside of those facilities. We also know that Iran's foreign minister is now taking a trip to meet with Vladimir Putin. As we speak, he's going to be flying to Russia as part of a defense pact between Russia and Iran that Donald Trump clearly does not or didn't know about or take into account for. But if Trump knew basics about politics, he would know that. You have Israel media, Channel 13, reporting the following. The Iranian nuclear program cannot be destroyed with bombs even if we attack it for another year with the Americans. So it seems as it is becoming more clear that this attack was not as effective as advertised. The Trump regime is changing its view on it, and now it's regime change and make Iran great again. I want to share this with you because this happened a little bit earlier as well, where you had Marco Rubio on Face the Nation, and he was asked, why would you do this if your intelligence said that Iran couldn't build a nuclear weapon anytime soon? And Rubio goes, well, that's irrelevant. Here, play this clip.
Are you saying there that the United States did not see intelligence that the Supreme Leader had ordered weaponization?
That's irrelevant. I see that question being asked in the media. That's an irrelevant question.
No,
they have
that is
everything
the
they need
key
to build a
point
weapon.
in U.S. intelligence assessments. You know
no,
that.
No, it's not.
Yes, it was.
No, it's
that
not.
The political decision had
well,
not
I know
been
that better
made.
than you know that, and I know that that's not the case.
But I'm asking you whether the order was given.
And the people who say that, it doesn't matter if the order was given. They have everything they need to build nuclear weapons. Why would you bury things in a mountain, 300 feet under the ground?
Right.
Why would you bury why do they have 60% enriched uranium? You don't need 60% enriched uranium. The only countries in the world that have uranium at 60% are countries that have nuclear weapons. Because they can quickly make it 90. They have all the elements. They have. Why do they have a space program? Is Iran going to go to the moon? No. They're trying to build an ICBM.
No, but
so
that's
they
a
can one day
question.
put a
That's a
warhead
question.
on it.
That's a question of intent. And you know, in the intelligence assessment, that it was that Iran wanted to be a threshold
How do
state
you know
and
what
use
the
this
intelligence
leverage.
assessment says?
I'm talking about the public March
says?
assessment, and that's why I was asking you if you know something more from
but
March.
That's also
if
an
an
inaccurate
order was
representation
given.
of it. That's an accurate representation of it. That's not how intelligence is read. That's not how intelligence is used.
Now, why would that be irrelevant? Wouldn't that be most relevant before getting the U.S. into protracted wars in Iran? And finally, Donald Trump's been attacking, again, MAGA Republican Thomas Massie for basically saying the things that Trump was saying before. And here's Thomas Massie this morning on Face the Nation. You can see for yourself. Let's play it.
The Speaker of the House, who is from your own party, has really rejected this. He says the Article 1 power of Congress really allows for the president to do this. It was a limited, necessary, targeted strike, he says.
Well, he's probably referring to the War Powers Act of 1973, but that's been misinterpreted. There was no imminent threat to the United States, which was what would authorize that. And I think that's peculiar to hear that from the Speaker of the House. Look, Congress was on vacation last week when all this was happening.
You haven't been briefed on any of
We
these details.
haven't been briefed. They should have called us all back. And frankly, we should have debated this War Powers resolution that Ro Khanna and I offered instead of staying on vacation and doing fundraisers and saying, oh, well, the president's got this under control. We're going to cede our constitutional authority.
There you have it, folks. Trump having a afternoon meltdown. We'll keep you posted every step of the way here on the MeidasTouch Network. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million subscribers. Let's keep growing this network together and getting out the truth. Thank you.
New Meidas merch drop. Check out the latest pro-democracy sticker packs, t-shirts, hats, sweatshirts, and more. All at store.meidastouch.com.